welcome to the Virgin Radio Pride Big Conversation. I love a good clap, not like that. This conversation, we've kicked off well, haven't we? This conversation is going to be big because I've worn my Pride dress. So I'm ready to go and have a brilliant panel with me. I've got Wegan, and that's how I'm going to introduce you. Incredible activists, social media campaigners and influencers. And I've also got Lewis Oakley, who is my bisexual bro. So this is a bit of a bisexual sandwich happening, so I'm bisexual too. I'm going to let you guys introduce yourselves a little bit more, so you can say whatever you want. And then we're going to kick off, and I'm going to start asking you about your children, if that's all right. So, Wegan, do you want to give it a go? Let us know who you are.
Sure. So I'm Megan, and I'm the British one.
I'm Whitney, so the W in the Wegan, she stole most of the name. And I'm the American one. And Megan and I have been together going on 16 years. And we've been online as a visible lesbian couple since 2009.
Yep, so we're coming up to our 16th anniversary soon, and people always be like, when did you meet? Obviously when we were 5.
Yes.
But no, we were 20 and 21. But yeah, some people still can't believe, especially Whitney. In your mid-30s, they often think I'm her mother.
No, please.
It's only 1 year apart. Yeah. I mean, if it's not sisters, then it goes to mother and daughter. So, yeah.
Thank you. And Lewis, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Lewis. I write and talk a lot about being a bisexual man. So, where to start? So I write a lot of articles around being bisexual. That then turned into writing an advice column. That then turned into writing a book. So it's all going in a lovely circle. And then obviously we host the Bisexual Brunch podcast together. So anytime you say bisexual 3 times, I just appear.
And I have tried that at home in my mirror, and it does work. I'm Samantha Baines. I'm bisexual. I'm an author, broadcaster, comedian, and actress. Stop doing all the things, Sam. No. I have a little baby girl. And I'm really excited to talk to you guys because I think I am the newest parent. I think I have the youngest baby. So I want to get lots of advice from you. So should we kick off by asking you when the kind of idea of parenthood came about for you? Were you guys on a first date and you were like, let me have your babies? Or did you wait a little bit longer?
Well, in proper lesbian fashion, we did move rather quickly, didn't we?
Lovely.
I mean, from the moment we met, we were officially a couple 2 weeks later. I think we said I love you a month later.
But we did meet on MySpace.
We did meet on MySpace, just to preface, in 2006. And we did long distance for 4 years from Hawaii to the UK, bridged the gaps of geography, and then I moved to the UK in 2012. But I never realized I could have children until I met Megan, if that makes sense. I just didn't see it possible, finding the love of my life, my wife one day, and just having a family. Because I'm from the South originally, Tennessee and Kentucky. It's very homophobic and kind of backwards, which is one of the reasons I left. But when I met Megan, I just fell in love with her so quickly, and I knew this was the person I wanted to spend my life with, but I also could see myself having kids with. And so yeah, pretty quickly. We actually even picked out the names of our future children pretty early on, didn't we?
Which we still don't know now if we're going to use them.
They've become such popular names now, and they weren't at the time.
They were not. But yeah, we still don't have kids yet, so we're still on that journey.
We are literally on that journey, aren't we, trying to conceive.
I love that. Well, I've actually picked out names of my future children with women that I never had children with.
Okay.
So, if you need any extras, I can give you them.
Thank you.
Nice.
And Lewis, when did kind of parenthood come up for you?
Yeah, so it's a weird one. I always wanted kids, so I kind of knew whether I ended up with a man or a woman, there would be kids in the equation. And I do think there's a bit of skepticism with bisexual people of they just want to have fun in their 20s and then they'll find someone of the opposite gender eventually to have children and procreate with, which I just don't see the logic in that. Can you imagine if you're in a same-sex relationship and then all of a sudden you get an alert on your phone I know we're in a loving relationship of 5 years, but I told myself that I would find someone of the opposite gender, to settle down and have children. It just doesn't happen. You just get into relationships with people. Anyway, I did end up getting into a relationship with a woman, and what was great is that she already had a child. So I became a step-parent, which is not something if you'd have met me before, I'd have been like, I would never date anyone that has a child. Why would I do that? But actually, it's really great because you can see if they're actually a good parent beforehand. And it's better to know that before you brought children into the world. So
Try
it's
before
like,
you
oh,
buy.
okay. No, she's generally all right at this. No, she's great. So I sort of became a step parent. And then I always knew I wanted to have kids around about that 30 mark. And I'd probably say we brought it forward just a little bit, just because once you're in a relationship with someone that's got a child, you already can't do the stuff you were putting off having kids for. Like, I can't go and work in Australia for 6 months. You know what I mean? So it's like, well, you know what? Let's just stop popping these babies out. So that was it. Now I've got 3.
Having popped a baby out,
Yeah.
pop, I feel, is not the way I would describe it. Mine sort of slowly, no, let's not describe it. But I think that's really interesting to hear all of your journeys, because I am someone, I never imagined I would have children. I always thought about adopting. And actually, when I came out to my family, some of my family members were particularly worried because they thought that meant I wouldn't have children when I said that I was bisexual. Weirdly, yeah, for me, I'd never imagined having, you know, a child physically myself. I'd always thought about adoption specifically. Was that ever, because I know you guys have done a lot on fertility rights, was that ever a consideration for you, adoption, or is it, and Lewis, or is it something that just you were more into popping them out?
So I guess in my head growing up, I'd always thought that I would somehow biologically be involved. But interestingly, my other half has kind of said over the years, like, oh, we should adopt. I'm like, no, more. Like, we're done. So I'm not up for adoption. I'm obviously nothing against it, but we're done. That's enough children.
Fair.
Yeah, we've thought about it as well, but just from the beginning of starting out our baby journey, we just knew that if we can, we'd ideally like to have 1 child each, biologically related to each of us. If we could combine, that would just be wonderful, but science isn't quite there yet. But we are open to the idea that if it doesn't work, or if we want more than 2 kids, which may happen, we don't know, then we're open to adoption. So yeah, I literally was actually looking into it yesterday and the requirements. Probably shouldn't say this now. But one thing is they come and inspect if you have a dog, basically, and we have a Chihuahua, so that's just not going to happen right now.
You're not allowed a dog?
Yeah, no, you're allowed, but they have to be well behaved. And our Chihuahua hates people. This social worker's going to come in and run out the house, and I'll be like, that went well. So we'll cross that bridge when we have to.
I feel like that cuts out a lot of people, especially small dogs. I have a sausage dog, and she's called Custard. She's not well behaved. Yeah. She tries to lick the baby's face all the time. I'm like, Custard, she's not for eating.
I spoke to some, there was a gay couple I was talking to recently, and they did adopt. And what was really interesting was a few years later, they got a call and it was basically like, the mother has had another child that she's not keeping. Do you want to have this one too? And so they're biological brothers, and like they're loving it and they're having a great time. So it's like they never intended to go for another one, but they got the call, and then the next day they had another baby, which is crazy.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And because I did look into adoption a little bit, and so I got married and then I got divorced because I'm a real fun-time gal, and then I had lots of relationships, which was really nice, and then I met someone and he's a man, so now I'm in this straight-facing relationship with a baby, and that comes with its own interesting conundrums. I do call him my partner specifically because I feel like the bisexual in me, you know, wants to be out and proud. But the amount of people who assume that I'm straight or that he's my husband even, because we're not married, is really interesting. So I think also being a queer parent, but also being a queer parent going into parenthood, there's lots of other things that come than maybe straight couples have to think about. Have you experienced any of that going into kind of your fertility journey as well, other than your dog?
Yeah, other than the dog. Yeah, I guess, well, when we embarked on our baby journey, we had no idea how a lesbian couple actually would go about having a baby. We just knew we wanted one. And we're like, so where do we start? We even asked our GP and they had no idea. And we're like, great. But they said, but surely you would get access to fertility treatment, as that would be discrimination if not. And we were like, yes, exactly. That's what we're thinking. And then never heard from them again. So, yeah, after a few investigations, freedom of information requests, we found out that in order for us to receive IVF on the NHS in our area, we'd have to self-fund 6 to 12 rounds of artificial insemination in a private clinic. So immediately we were like, oh, so we're being forced into a private
Just
setting.
to preface, though, that with the cost of sperm, you're looking at anywhere from 25 to 50,000 pounds before you're on like a level playing field.
And you can't do home insemination, so that really devastated us because we thought we'd do home insemination to begin with. We already knew we wanted a sperm donor from a sperm bank, so it would be medical and regulated, and all the laws are there to protect you and your child. So we were like, done, we found the sperm donor, great, and then we found out we can't do home insemination, and we were like, are you joking? And they will only let it be sent to the clinic, so you have to go to the clinic regardless. And then we started hearing from our followers that they basically can never reach the criteria in order to receive IVF on the NHS because they can't afford to fund that amount of IUIs. So therefore, they just can't have a child. It's just like devastating. So that's why we started to campaign for fertility equality, is what we call it. And then we went into legal action as well to try and get the government to listen, which they did, but they haven't done anything, but they've announced they will. So we're getting there.
And we actually have Marie Caulfield on our DMs saying this is going into legislation, and that's the first time she's ever said it anywhere in our Instagram DMs, which is quite funny.
Yeah, I'm like, hey.
So if you shared that publicly, just to make sure.
It was a comment. That was a comment.
Oh, it was a comment, actually. We pinned it to the top.
I did pin it and shared it to the stories. Yeah.
So
they did announce it in the Women's Health Strategy in 2022. They're removing the barriers for lesbians to conceive, essentially. But they just haven't done it yet. And obviously they're just a bit busy right now. But we're going to be annoying them very soon. Just keep annoying them.
The election's done.
Yeah.
It's
They're like, surely they're back and sorted now, aren't they?
So just to delve back into that, so what was the amount that you said that you have to spend before you get the option to do fertility treatment on the NHS?
it can vary anywhere from £25,000 to £50,000, depending on what your area gives. So our area, we found out, you have to self-fund 12 rounds of artificial insemination. And that, with the cost of sperm, you're probably looking at around 50,000. But some areas have 6 rounds, some have 3. It's the postcode lottery as well.
So because of who you love, because you're a lesbian couple, it's going to cost you 50 grand.
Absolutely.
Yes.
It's a gay tax, is what
Yeah.
they've
Because
called
basically it's in comparison to a heterosexual couple or bisexual and women. Sorry.
Thank you.
But the criteria is 2 years of unprotected sex. So obviously 2 years can definitely take its toll when you're trying to conceive, but there's no evidence required, not like going with a video diary, and there's no financial cost. So there's just a clear barrier and clear difference there that a straight couple, essentially, or bisexual, can go in and say, oh yeah, we've been trying for 2 years when they haven't, and immediately get funding. Whereas I don't think we need to prove that we can't create a child naturally, but we have to then go and prove it and spend thousands
socially infertile de facto
in order to prove the fact that we can't conceive naturally. It's just insane.
And I have to say, I do know straight couples that have done that have gone to the doctor and said, we've been trying for 2 years when they haven't been.
Yeah.
But
Which I don't want to take that away from them. I don't, but still,
Yeah.
But you'd like not to pay 50 grand.
Exactly. We don't want to jump the queue or anything like that, or take away, like Megan said. We just want to have equality, fertility equality for all. And that's what we're still fighting for, the good fight.
And we were really shocked when it's at the cost of sperm as well. So
Oh,
obviously, fertility treatments, yes, they're very expensive. But the cost of sperm vials, like 0.5 millilitres, is over £1,000 per one, and that's one round. So we bought, I think, 7 vials, or maybe 5 vials, I think, in the end, and then with shipping and everything, it comes to about £8,000 just for sperm. But unfortunately, if you go the other way and you find a sperm donor online, then you're putting yourself in a dangerous situation and your children's rights as well, because you're not legally protected, regardless if you have a contract drawn up. And so we have a lot of our followers who message and go, oh, don't worry, just find one on Facebook like we did. And I'm like, oh no. It's horrifying. And sadly, we've learnt a lot of the sperm donors actually force them into having sex to conceive naturally, is how they like to call it.
Wow.
They really prey on the vulnerable.
Yeah.
It's very devastating, actually. Some of the stories we've heard are just mind-blowing. And, at the time we were in 2020, and now we're in 2024, which is wild. But still then, we were considered equal in the eyes of the law to get married. It just didn't follow through to fertility. And it was just wild that we were in 2020 and, this was still happening. So it was quite outrageous, wasn't it?
It still is.
Still is.
Wow. So don't buy sperm on the internet, I think is what
Yeah.
we're saying.
Through a sperm bank. There is actually a Netflix documentary right now, and I haven't watched it fully. Whitney refuses to watch it right now. Yeah. The Man with 1,000 Kids, I think it's called. And he has, well, the way he's managed to mainly father so many is through unofficial sperm banks, where he ran his own website, I think, and just basically would say, hey, I'll donate sperm, and told the people he was only donating to 5 families, but they know of at least, I think, 500 biological children, but I think it's 1,000, which means in the future there could be like 15,000 people related to him, and they're all very close proximity, a lot of them in the Netherlands, which means they're not going to be able to just date easily. They're going to have to make sure they're not related, and it's just horrendous why anyone would do that. It's like a God complex, but that's scary to us as well. So one reason why we're really glad still going to a sperm bank, but still I don't think they've got the regulations in place we actually thought, because it turns out he went to a lot of different sperm banks saying he hadn't donated to other sperm banks, but he had. So you think, wouldn't there just be like a registry? You just go and, there's his name. No, you're not donating anymore. So I think the sperm bank we use, Cryos International, that's something they've suggested they want to see happen. So I'm sure we'll add that to our list to make it happen as well.
Yeah, there should be some sort of check, like fingerprint.
Fingerprints, yes, good idea.
There you go.
I don't know if that's the same as a fingerprint. I don't have one. I don't know how it works. Also, my other half's a postman, and I hate to think of him just delivering sperm to people that they
Don't worry,
bought on
it
the
comes in
internet.
a like. Oh, actually, yeah. How would they deliver
How
that?
does
I was
it
about to say it would
deliver?
come in a nice frozen thing they put out,
Like a cryogenic
But they probably
chamber.
don't. No, they turn up. No, they just rock up with it in a cup or come into their house and just do it, and then
They come into your house.
Yeah. Not my house. Hasn't happened at my house.
What
But
do you do with that cup afterwards?
No, don't know.
There's a lot to wade through, is what we're
I hope
saying.
it's not like a mug, you actually use. I hope it is like a plastic little cup.
What is going on with your journey at the moment, if you don't mind sharing?
Of course.
So we've personally, we've done 3 IUIs in the private clinic. And the first one, we were very shocked, but we were pregnant on the first one, but sadly it was a chemical pregnancy. So we were very devastated because we didn't think it would happen on the first time. So every time after that, we were like really hoping to see pregnant again. And we just didn't see it for the next 2. And then we moved on to IVF, and we just had around, was it May?
April, May.
April, May. And sadly, it was unsuccessful as well. So we're gearing up to go in August again. So we're staying positive and we're trusting the process. That's all you can do, isn't it? It's just trying to divine time. And I know one day when we do get our little baby wagon, that we won't regret anything along the journey because it led us to them. So.
And sorry, what does a chemical pregnancy mean?
It basically is almost a stage before you get your period. A lot of people wouldn't even realise they are pregnant because your period will just arrive. So it means that you got pregnant, but normally it's something was actually wrong with the embryo. So the body actually rejects it. So it will come up as pregnant for maybe a week or 2, and then it would disappear. Okay. So basically, as we were testing, it reached the point when on day like 15, you have to test again. Or we tested a bit early, and it was pregnant, and we were so excited. Told everyone, which we shouldn't have done. And then, it got to day 15, which is the day the clinic want you to test, still pregnant. So we're like, great, amazing. But then, just want to keep a track of it. You keep testing, and then the line was getting weaker, and the lines were getting more positive every day. And my sister, who's had a few chemical pregnancies, was like, I'm really sorry, but I think it's a chemical pregnancy. And I was like, oh, I really hope not. Like, maybe it's just not a strong line. And then I started to have a bit of bleeding, and the nurse at the clinic was like, it's fine, it's from spotting. Like, what's your sister know? Who's the midwife? Me. And I was like, turns out my sister knew. Thank you. So, yeah.
I'm sorry to hear that.
But thank you. It's surprising how much it has an impact on how excited we were to now, whenever we test, it's horrendous and we feel physically sick and I don't want to look at it. And then we look at it and you don't see anything. You're like, are you sure? And we've literally taken apart pregnancy tests to really analyse it under the light. Maybe it is there.
And even months later, we think, oh, maybe it was a fluke. We'll test again, because we've heard stories that people have had like negative
pregnancy tests.
Yeah, and even like they've had like their period for like 6 months, then they went to have an ultrasound and there was a baby waving, So we're like, could we be one of those lucky people? But sadly, no. But it really does psychologically kind of mess with you. It's a really tough journey. It's a full-time job in itself, isn't it? Just trying to get back on the horse, if you will, and like have that same energy. And
there's a lot that goes into it, like supplements and obviously the injections and eating right and cutting out caffeine and alcohol. So it's a lot.
I didn't know if I was going to be able to cope with cutting out alcohol. Not to sound like that, but like I've never done it before. And I had to cut out caffeine. And it was, I think caffeine was harder.
Yeah,
I also got gestational diabetes when I was pregnant.
Really?
And I had pelvic girdle pain, so I couldn't walk for longer than 5 minutes. So I just sat in a chair and couldn't eat sugar and was really unhappy. So, you know, pregnancy
glorious.
can happen in all
Yeah.
different ways. And I had a terrible pregnancy, but I did have bleeding, as I said at the beginning. And, you know, when you said about the emotions, it really reminded me. I actually went into the hospital. And obviously I'm a comedian, so even when I'm sad, I quite like to try and make people laugh and feel comfortable. But because I was having bleeding, I didn't realise I cared about being pregnant as much as I did until that happened. And I was hysterically crying at the receptionist, but also trying to make her feel comfortable so she didn't feel uncomfortable. So I was sort of like crying, like, I'm sorry, I don't know why I'm crying this much. And like it was really loud. And I could not stop crying, and all this emotion was coming out of me, but at the same time I was trying to be like a sociable human. And I didn't, and it was quite early on in the pregnancy, and it was kind of our first try, and I didn't actually realise, obviously I cared, but I didn't realise how much I cared until that moment. And I think, you know, from then on, it's that constant fear of, you know, we had extra scans and I had a smudge scan where I was like, where's the baby?
Yeah.
In that big black space. Oh, that's my womb. Okay, cool. And it also, it's quite invasive, I think, as a woman, the whole pregnancy experience, and things go in and come out. And it's something, because I had considered adoption before, because I'm bisexual, I didn't know if I was going to have a relationship with a man or a woman and if children were going to come out of that. I think I didn't really think about what pregnancy really entailed until I had a baby in me. And I was like, oh, wow. And a friend of mine actually said that too as well. She was on an IVF journey, that she was so focused on the journey. And then when she got pregnant, she was like, oh, there's a baby going to come at the end of this.
It's got to come out. That's a scary thing. Yeah.
And have you had conversations about, you know, how this journey might end, you know, how you're going to continue this? Is that something you talk about a lot? Or, because I know you're quite open about it on your social media.
Yeah, we are. I think the thing is, we always say, obviously, I'm carrying the first child, but Whitney obviously gets asked, like, well, does Whitney want to carry? And obviously you can speak for yourself.
Well, I mean, the answer is like no. Like I've never had the desire to want to carry, but I really want the baby, and I can't wait to like be a mother. But it's just not like innately in me to want to carry, and I don't know why. And I used to actually feel like maybe there's something wrong with me. Why do I feel this way? But I think I've met other people who feel the exact same way, and we often find in a lot of like same-sex relationships, there's always one who really wants to carry and one who doesn't, which is amazing. But if I had to take one for the team, I would do it. Like, definitely. I would, absolutely.
I actually don't know if I can cope with Whitney pregnant. I just don't know.
I'm just a mare.
She always is like a medical mystery. Lots of things go wrong, and just Lord knows what happens. So I think I'd rather just do it myself.
I like that. I am in a relationship with a man, so I did have to take one for the team. Do you think queer couples have children older? Or is that not a thing?
I mean, most people we know have had children definitely like early 30s, even up to 40s, and a few like late 20s. Yeah. But
I think
definitely.
so, because I think it's like a lot to figure out how you even have a child, and then not even factoring into potentially someone might come out later in life as well. So they just might not have met someone before they're going to have children with, might not realise they were gay, for example. So yeah, everyone we know definitely are a bit later on. But I think everyone is pretty much later on now. Even a lot of straight women that I know are just having children as well, which makes me feel better, because I'm now 37. Fingers crossed to have a child while I'm 37. Is that possible? I don't know. May next year is my birthday, and I'm not very good at maths, but fingers crossed.
I did it.
I'll be 38. No, 37.
And what about you, Lewis? What do you think?
I think what you're saying, like, I think like a lot of people are having kids later on. Although I know I think that might be a city thing though. I feel like maybe the further you get out of London, maybe they do get a bit younger. I don't know. I can't really put a finger on it, but I think, it depends. I mean, if a lot of LGBT people have a harder and longer path towards parenthood, it just makes sense it takes longer. Because I do think, you know, over the years I've seen friends and people I've met on nights out that there was this one guy, I always think about him, that was like, I really want to be a dad, and he was like, he literally spoke to me, I didn't even know him, but he spoke to me for like half an hour of like how he wants to be a dad and how it's hard for gay men because he basically needs to find someone willing to be an oven. Not, you know, he was joking. But But that was basically what he was saying. And like I've now got a almost 4-year-old, and I still see on his socials that they don't have a child, and I was like, oh, I know he really wanted one, and I don't know what's happening behind the scenes there, but it's like, oh, it's like you were telling me this years ago, and you still don't have a child yet. So I think it probably does push back later and later because it can be hard.
Yeah, I think, especially your story, Wagon. I'm going to call you Wagon collectively. I hope it's okay. I love it. There is so much in the way as a queer couple of trying to have a baby. And also, like you said, coming out later in life. I got divorced before I came out. And so, maybe for me, it was more about exploring me and what I want before then going to have a baby. So I do wonder if for me, that's why it was later in life. It was all part of my kind of queer journey, but it's an interesting one. But I'd love to talk to you about like representation now as well amongst children, because I think this is a really interesting one. Lewis, you have children of kind of varying ages because obviously you're a stepdad as well. When was there a time when you like sat down with them and explained that daddy is bisexual?
So with my now 15-year-old, so there was definitely a conversation about I need to tell her, especially it's not just like I'm bisexual, it's like I'm on like telly talking about it, and like someone is going to find that eventually. So it's like, okay, right, like we do need to like tell him. And so I'd kind of been talking to my other half about how to like bring it up and what was the right way to do it, and at the same time, you don't want to make a big deal out of it in the sense of, I've got something to tell you, and it like makes people think, oh God, what's going to happen? So trying to find like a funny way to do it. And then basically she called me one day and was like, oh, I was just on a bus with Jamie, and he was like, what is gay? Oh, okay. What is lesbian? Okay. What is bisexual? Oh, is that what Lewis is? So like he beat me to it. So I was like, okay, fine.
That's amazing.
Obviously with the younger ones, it's just, they're just starting to talk. So it's not really about having a conversation. But what I like to think is that I've got all of my like vanity stuff around the house. So I've got when I was on the cover of Attitude magazine. I've got when I spoke at Pride in London on the stage. So there's lots of like things of Daddy out doing bisexual stuff that at some point they'll be like, Daddy, what is that? Why'd you have your top off in that magazine? And then I can like explain. So that's kind of like my approach there. Did that answer the question?
Yeah. So you haven't like organised a sit-down chat where you're like, children, daddy's bisexual?
No, and I think the thing is as well, I think with bisexuals, especially when you're in like an opposite sex relationship and then you've got kids and it just like, you just feel like you're living a straight life. Like just making sure I have moments where I just remind people that I'm bisexual. So even if it's like something like we'll be watching a TV show and Joel McDonald was on it, and I think Jamie asked, what's his last name? And I was like, Joel McDreamy. just little under the cuss things of like, yeah, like that it's still a thing. So I try and do like little bits like that here and there.
I like that. Well, my baby is 6 months old, so I've told her I'm bisexual, but I'm not sure it's really filtered through yet. Do you find, do you ever have to kind of advocate for yourself among like your other friends and their children, or explain to them the situation? Because I feel like because a lot of the time people think I'm straight, I kind of, like Lewis, want to randomly throw it into conversation and be like, I'm bisexual, like just when we're talking about like, cooking, just so they know. It's like, well, I can't constantly wear the flag or a T-shirt. Do you feel like you want to kind of get that representation in amongst like other people's children?
I think so, but I guess we just do it
just naturally. Like even our nephew, we didn't even like come out to him as such, and he was only 2 or 3 at the time, and he just knew we came as one. He's like an Auntie-Whitney, Auntie-Megan, and they love each other very much.
And I think once I showed him a video, he was younger, he's 4 now, isn't he, nearly 5, but I wasn't really thinking about it, and in it we were kissing, and I was like, whoops, didn't think about that one, because I don't know if he realised, we're together or whatever, but he just loved it. He's like, again, just wanted to watch it again.
Cute.
Like, and I don't think he's phased. I don't know, at some point at school, it might dawn on him, but hopefully it's just normal to him, as it should be. That's what we hope. And just, we've got some of our friends, like children, who love us, and I'm like, do they realise we're a couple? I just don't know. I just don't know, do you? I haven't asked.
I think they just sense the love, and they sense that they feel safe, and they like being in our presence, and they just know we always come as a duo, which is really just nice to see, like how, before they're out in the scary outside world of how like, vulnerable and sweet children can be, and how, external factors can change that perspective.
I love that he was like, again. Any parents
it.
who watch Teletubbies
Yeah.
or just people who
Yeah.
like the Teletubbies, they always say again. It's like a
He loves
Teletubbies
it.
video.
Yeah.
Well, I want to open it up to see if there's any questions in the room, if anyone has anything they want to ask. I have tons more, so don't worry if you don't. Any? Yeah?
Do you think your future child will listen to this podcast? Is it something you show them?
Do you think, that's a great question, do you think your future child will listen to this podcast? Is it something that you'd show them or have them listen to?
Yeah, why not? I
great
hope so. That'd
question.
be really nice. Like,
Yeah.
hello, future child.
Yeah, hello there.
It's why we document our lives online, really, though, because obviously we hope they can watch back the YouTube videos or Instagram, TikTok, if it's still around, of how they came to be and the journey that we went on to have them. I think that's quite nice that you never really get that from, obviously, like my parents' generation. Like, who knows how I was made? Don't really want to know, I guess. But I think it'd be quite cool they can actually watch that journey and know like how wanted they were.
Exactly.
Any other questions? Yeah.
So congrats on the women's health strategy and
Oh,
stuff.
thank
I
you.
followed it really closely, and my
Amazing.
partner and I did a similar boat,
Oh,
but
thank you.
we're like very like financially unable. So what can we do to sort of help the cause, I guess, and sort of push it forward and actually get it over the
Yes.
line?
I think to help with the campaigning side is to write to your MP. Either you can obviously put together your own letter, but also Stonewall have a postcode tool where you can put in your postcode and it populates the letter for you, and it actually says in it what you're entitled to in your area, which is really handy because it's actually hard to find out otherwise. So even if you just want to make sure the information is there. And obviously we're going to be campaigning more now that the new government's in, so just keep an eye on what we're going to do next and how you can get involved. And we just like to call it like annoying them, like we're just not going anywhere. We keep popping up in Parliament a few times. But yeah, I think just
Popping up in
supporting
Parliament
is
a great name for like a new show. Just with you guys and the backbenchers like popping up.
Yeah.
Here they are again.
Just the power of social media as well,
Yeah.
resharing, tagging them, just constantly annoying them because they actually do see it and they do get annoyed, we've heard. So
Well, I thought
it's
Maria
just
Crawford would hate us when she met us, but she actually thanked us, which was
for
quite
keeping
nice,
her on her
so.
toes and keeping her.
But on another note, for people who are obviously trying to conceive and no changes have happened yet, a good way is to start to take legal action, get a nice little letter drawn up by some lawyers. That normally makes a lot of the ICBs listen and actually give funding. So try appealing it, try taking legal action is another way that we say. Our area was just like, nope, not doing anything, which we wanted them to do, which was lovely because we wanted to take legal action. But a lot of other areas do listen and implement the policy they're meant to. The HFEA and the government have said that they should be implementing these changes regardless of the government actually like forcing them to do it. But like no one's listening, of course. So,
Any more questions in the room? Yeah.
You mentioned about putting a letter in from the father into the baby pack, and I wondered if you had thoughts around. Obviously, I understand that from what I understand from my good friend who is a single mom through IVF, that the father has a right to see the child if they want to, and equally the child has a right to see the father when they want to. Have you given thought to how you will handle that situation at some point in the future?
yes. Well, the donor doesn't have a right to see the child, but the child does have a right to find out who the donor is, and they can request to the donor to meet them. The donor doesn't have to meet them. So, we've got what's called an open ID donor, which they have to be in the UK anyway, which means that at the age of 16, the child can find out information about their donor. That might be enough for them, just to know their like name, where they're from, and a bit more information, or they might actually want to meet them. For us, we're a little bit worried about it, to be honest. Like, we're happy for them to go meet with them, have a coffee, maybe be like, oh, I see, they've got a similar nose. But we're
I mean, they have the right to know.
But we're kind of hoping they're not going to be like, all right, like start calling him
Want a
dad and
relationship or
because that's
something,
not what the donor's there for or wanting to achieve. They're not to be their dad; they're just being a donor. But it would be lovely if they had maybe some sort of relationship. But equally, we do know apparently a lot of donor children aren't interested in finding out who their like sperm donor father is because they don't actually care because they have a loving family. It's not something that was hidden from them. I think maybe sometimes a child, especially in a straight relationship, they've hidden the fact that they're from a sperm donor and they find out later on in life. I think they go on a journey wanting to know more about that person. But we'll just wait and see.
Yeah, we'll take it as it
yeah.
comes. But yeah, it's definitely something we're like worried about. But I guess we have, what, 16
Well,
years?
you say that, but now with technology, they say there's a lot, if they go on ancestry.com or
Yes.
do your DNA test, they'll easily can find, like, if they have potential half-siblings out there, they might even find the sperm donor. And also there's Facebook groups dedicated to different donors, which I am resisting the urge to go onto because, then you'll just find out a lot of information that I'm just trying not to find out, to be honest. I think we're just happy in our little bubble. We've
Definitely.
picked a sperm donor for now, but we may have to switch soon. So it's hard. Like, we're invested in this one, but we might have to just pick another one, which it is a really weird process picking a sperm donor because it's very strange.
One of my lesbian friends said that I guess there's the letter that you read from them as like when you're going through, and she said the reason we picked that guy was because he'd written something, I'm probably going to quote it wrong, like, and if they ever do get curious about who I am, I'm always happy to take them for a drink and a pizza or something like that. And she's like, that was like that put it over the line for us of why we chose him for some reason.
Yeah. No, that definitely plays a role. Ours had some really like hard-hitting things as well. We were like, oh my gosh, not only like do they tick all the boxes, they're like a really good person, and that was really comforting to know.
But sadly, it's not something we're ever going to share online
No.
because then obviously other
They're too
people
specific.
will know which
makes
sperm donor we
sense.
have. So we just can't share it. But it is lovely.
But equally, it's also sad if they did want to go meet the donor, and if the donor wanted nothing to do or not wanting to meet them, that would also devastate me because they have,
Because that's quite a few years down the line when the child's going to reach out. They may have their own family. They may feel very different about the fact they donated sperm. No one may know about
Exactly.
it. So, yeah, we're very mindful of that. And we're very mindful of the fact that we're at a crossroads where we only have one sperm vial left. And so at the moment, the clinic has agreed to allow us to split it in half because there's 10 million in there. You don't need 10 million.
just need one or two.
Just need a few. So they're going to let us split it and then refreeze it for Whitney. So in the next round, if I don't get any viable embryos, then we will have to switch donors because we're trying to have our children biologically related through the sperm donor. So we want them to have that kind of relation because they can't be related to both of us any other way, and that's just something that might bring them together, but equally they then will go through the same journey with the same sperm donor. Because if the sperm donor wants to meet them both, he does, and if he doesn't, he doesn't. But then if one has a sperm donor that's lovely and the other one isn't, then that might cause issues for them both later on down the line. But can't control everything, so we'll just have to wait and see.
Well, I have one final question. If anyone is similar or feels like a connection to you and they're in a similar situation and they're just thinking about parenthood, be it a bisexual person in a straight-facing relationship or not, or a lesbian couple, or anyone in the queer community, what is the sort of one nugget of advice that you'd give them? I'll start with you, Lewis.
Oh, really? Do it. It's a really weird thing. If I think about who I was before having children and now, I think the weirdest thing is, I've written books and I've done podcasts and stuff like that, and you kind of, sometimes you think, oh, what does it matter? Who cares? Who listens to it? But like with your kids, it like never feels like a waste of energy. Even if you're exhausted after a hard day and you've now chased them around the house half an hour pretending you're a monster, like it's like that, like it's like this will never be a waste of time. So it really like that investment in your kids, it's a really weird thing. And also just the fact that, I'm someone who, if I'd have gotten like bad sleep, like for one night, I would have been in a foul mood with everyone for a week or two. Whereas now I just don't sleep. And it's like you discover you have superpowers. Like you actually evolve as a person. It's weird. It's so rewarding to see them grow and have little bits of you, but little bits of themselves, and to be able to put that investment in them. And it's weird to see how you've changed, and your priorities are all different, and you've got this weird superpowers now where you don't need sleep. So
That's
odd.
good to know.
Yeah.
Phew, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh.
Is it your going next? No?
What advice? I would say, what you said basically. I mean, just go for it. Get the process started. Start finding out information. Since we started, there is a bit more out there now, isn't there? But it can be daunting, like definitely. But it's very exciting because ultimately it's going to lead you to having a family with the one you love, and just trust the process. Just go through the motions. That's pretty much what I would say.
Oh, I thought you were going to say.
What?
Well, you said it already.
Oh, wait, sorry, yeah. Is it redirection? That one?
No.
Okay.
She has many sayings, so is it that saying?
Is it that
No.
one? No.
Oh, there might be. You can say it if you want.
Well, also, like when things go wrong, sometimes I think rejection is often redirection. And that's, again, with trusting the process. Because, I mean, we didn't know we would still be on this journey 4 years later. And we're still on it. But I know ultimately it's going to lead us to where we want to be. So my advice would be trust the process. Surround yourself with people who support you and understand you. And just don't give up on your dreams.
Very nice, very nice. I had something. Hang on a minute, what was it? I think mine would be, I'm actually going to steal this because someone commented this on our Instagram literally a few days ago, and I was like, oh, I like this. Okay. They said the plan may change, but the goal doesn't. And I quite liked that because they say, like, when you start on your fertility journey, you have to be open-minded that literally anything goes. Like you said, we didn't know we might be going off abroad soon, or maybe Whitney will be taking both for the team. Like, you really can't go like, this is what's going to happen, and I'll be pregnant by this age, and blah, blah. I think you just really do just have to...
That goes out the window, doesn't it?
Yeah. End of the day, if you just want a child, you know, you don't know how you may end up there and how the child may come to be, but you'll get there in the end.
I love that. And also, you know, your Instagram is a really great resource, I think, for people on that fertility journey. Lewis has written a book about bisexuality. There's, you know, individual NHS trusts that have lots of advice out there. So those are great places to go to if you're kind of looking initially. I think my advice, as a bisexual lady who's popped out a baby, didn't pop, is that do it, because queer people are excellent people. I also have a hearing aid, so I'm deaf, and deaf people are excellent people, and we all need to procreate more to bring more excellent people into the world. So absolutely do it, go for it, but also know that being pregnant is not like a commercial, and I had a terrible time, but enjoy yourselves. Thank you very much to my panel. Should we give them a round of applause?